A huge victory for the Phillies last night. They pick up the second consecutive win of the series against the Rays. Was a pretty close game up until that bottom of the eighth inning. They beat the Rays 9-4. We saw it all. We saw it was really a hitter's duel at first, but then the eighth inning comes around. The bench is clearing. I wouldn't call it a brawl, but a bench is clearing incident. Couple home runs from the Phillies, and a lot of things to talk about from last night and from tonight. Tyler Mroz, Heat Ratio Sports, Phillies pregame show. A really, like I said, a great game for the Phillies last night. Did have some negatives. We'll start off with that just so we can get those out of the way. Ranger Suarez did not look good at all. 5 1/3 inning, 12 hits, 4 runs, just 2 strikeouts. His line was 5.5. And I know a lot of people, including myself, were picking that at the over, and that did not hit. He did not even come close to that. Rays were hitting a lot of what he was throwing. So not a great night from Ranger Suarez. His velocity looked off. If you watched the Pikes Pub live stream last night, you heard Frank and Tony talk about how Rangers, his location is really good, but his velocity is below average of what he's normally used to throwing. So I wouldn't be too concerned with him. I don't think he's 100% yet. We've seen him be inconsistent in his starts since coming off the injured list. Had a really good game, then a really bad game, had a really good game last time, and this time had a really bad game. So I think he's trying to get into a groove until the postseason starts, but I'd rather have the inconsistency now than in October. Now we'll get to the positives. Kyle Schwarber, 14 leadoff home runs this year, the most in a single season, passing Alfonso Soriano. For the people that said Kyle Schwarber should not be the leadoff guy, what do you have to say about that now? I've been a big, huge believer that Schwarber should be the leadoff guy this day and age in MLB. To get off to a 1-0 start that quickly, that just shifts the momentum so much in your favor. So Kyle Schwarber did leave the game with left elbow soreness. We'll get to him more in a little bit, but he did hit his 14th leadoff home run of the season, the most in a single season. Record-breaking night for Kyle Schwarber. And then Trey Turner was on fire. 3 for 5, 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. I was actually sitting in left field. He hit those very close to where I was sitting. I think the first one was like a section over, a couple rows up, same thing. But Trey Turner, phenomenal game from him. 2 home runs, 4 RBIs. We talked about that benches clearing incident. Edwin Uceta came in. He's been very good for the Rays this season, sub-2 ERA, and he gave up a couple runs, and then he plunked Nick Castellanos, and it was actually the fastest recorded pitch of his career. So do with that what you will. But he was suspended 3 games, and then Kevin Cash was suspended a game and given a fine. So Nick Castellanos said it best. It's like a toddler crying about him taking his dessert too early, or he said something like that. But Uceta give up a couple runs, and he just plunks Castellanos. Totally uncalled for. And you see, it was his fastest recorded pitch of, I know, the season. I think it's his career too. So MLB taking action against the Rays reliever. He is suspended for 3 games, and you will not be seeing Kevin Cash managing tonight because he is also suspended for tonight's game. And then can we talk about Cal Stevenson and Buddy Kennedy? Cal Stevenson pinch hit for Johan Rojas. Everybody around me was yelling about how this was a terrible decision. Rojas had the double earlier in the game, or it was a triple because he advanced on the throwing error. But a lot of people were concerned about Cal Stevenson coming up. It was a lefty-righty matchup, but Johan Rojas has been a very good hitter recently, so a lot of people were questioning it. It was a tight game at that point. And Cal Stevenson, the go-ahead RBI, and then Buddy Kennedy comes in. He gets an RBI. So shout out to these guys who are replacements for, excuse me. Wait for it. Oh, man. Thank you. If anybody said bless you. But yeah, Cal Stevenson called up for Austin Hayes, who's on the injury list. Buddy Kennedy called up for Alec Boehm, who's on the injury list, also filling in for Edmundo Sosa. So these 2 guys coming in clutch when it matters most. And that's why I really like these guys. You saw the Cal Stevenson, he pinch hit in the game against, I believe it was the Braves, one of the games against the Braves, but came in, had that pinch hit bunt single, and then the Phillies got the walk. I don't think that was against the Braves. I forget who that was against, honestly, but Stevenson comes through when it matters most. So does Buddy Kennedy. He showed you last night. 1 for 3, filled in for Kyle Schwarber after he was injured. So great game for not just these two, but for the entire Phillies team minus Ranger Suarez. He'll be back, though. Nothing to be overly concerned about. And then we move towards tonight's game. Shane Baz, 2-3, a 3.27 ERA. Doesn't have a ton of innings pitched so far this season, but still, he has looked pretty good in the innings that he has pitched. Going up against Zach Wheeler, the ace of the Phillies, the second favorite in the NL Cy Young race. Chris Sale did just have another amazing game against the Rockies. I believe he struck out 11. I'll get more into that in a little bit because there are some Braves pitching updates. But Zach Wheeler, 14-6, a 2.59 ERA, has been on fire since that Yankees game where he gave up 7 runs. So Zach Wheeler looking a lot better now, looking like the true ace, one of the best pitchers in not just the National League, but in baseball. Phillies lineup tonight. Kyle Schwarber was originally in this lineup. He was leading off playing DH. And then about an hour later, he was scratched from the lineup. So Bryson Stott will be batting leadoff for the Phillies now. Garrett Stubbs getting the day off. Aramis Garcia is catching today, getting his, I believe, second start. Started that Sunday game against the Marlins where the Phillies got obliterated. So Garcia gets his first start here in this series. Cody Clemens was originally at third. They moved him to first. Bryce Harper is DHing. So this is the full lineup. Bryson Stott, Trey Turner, Bryce Harper, Casty, Brother Marsh, Weston Wilson, Cody Clemens, Johan Rojas, and Aramis Garcia. Feeling a little bit of a Cal Stevenson-esque game from Aramis Garcia. We'll get to that on the triple play. But a lot of lineup changes for the Phillies today, but not much for the Rays. No Yandy Diaz, though, who is arguably their best player. So no Kevin Cash, no Edwin Uceda, no Yandy Diaz. Rays lineup is Christopher Morel batting leadoff. They're taking somewhat of the Phillies approach, the low average, a lot of home runs guy, because Morel batting 198 on the season, but he does have 21 home runs. That's the most on the Rays. Brandon Lowe, Junior Caminero. Is that Jeff Lowe? Jordan Lowe? No, it's not. Josh Lowe. What am I thinking? Dylan Carlson. He's batting. He's playing in left field tonight. Jonathan Aranda batting sixth. He's at first base. Jose Siri is in center field. Thought they were going to not let him play. I didn't see him in the lineup at first, but I was wrong. Another guy, really low average, but hitting over 15 home runs. He has 17 homers, but is only batting 186. That is the second worst in that lineup, which is kind of saying something. They have 3 guys with averages under 200. You got Ben Rortvedt, I believe that's how you say it. He is catching for the Rays today. And then batting ninth at shortstop, Taylor Walls, person with the lowest average, 176 average, 1 home run. Actually has more stolen bases than he does RBIs. So if he gets on base, we'll see if he tries to steal on Aramis Garcia. Not sure how good defensively he is, but that could be something to look out for tonight. But other things we're going to look out for tonight, it's the keys to the game. Number 1, I think this is the most important key for the Phillies. It is Bryson Stott. He is your new leadoff guy. He is replacing Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber, statistically, the best leadoff hitter in the league this season. So Bryson Stott filling in for that role. I say it a lot on here. When Trey Turner and Kyle Schwarber, the 1 and 2 guy in your lineup, when they are on, usually the rest of the lineup is on, because games where I've covered every game on this channel since early August. And what I've always noticed, Kyle Schwarber and Trey Turner, when they go over, the team usually does not win games. So Bryson Stott filling in that role. I think he needs to have at least 2 hits tonight against Shane Baz too. Shane Baz pretty good in the innings we've seen from him so far. Does have a 2.76 road ERA. So definitely not going to be an easy matchup for the Phillies lineup. But Wheeler, Zach Wheeler, he does not have the best history against the Rays. Hasn't pitched against them since the 2021 season, but 0-2, a 4.91 ERA. In 3 starts, 32 strikeouts. So maybe another thing for the triple play. Spoiler alert. But yeah, you look back at these games, they were all with the Phillies. One was September of 2020. He struck out 8, gave up 4 runs. The next game, struck out 14. But he has pitched 7+ innings in each of those games. He struck out 8+. Twice did he get over 10, but he has given up runs again. But this is a completely different Tampa Bay team. Also a completely different Zach Wheeler. Zach Wheeler is arguably in his prime right now, at maybe the peak of how good he will actually be, which I think anybody would love to have that as their peak. Zach Wheeler is consistently in the Cy Young conversation since coming over from the Mets, but he needs to have a big night because I don't think this is going to be a high-scoring game. You saw in that first game in the series, it was a low-scoring game. Final score was 2-1, but then the Phillies got all the runs in last night, but I think with no Schwarber, I just don't see it being a high-scoring game, especially with Shane Baz and Zach Wheeler. So maybe that'll be another bonus bet. Maybe we'll bet the under. Got to check out those numbers getting when we get to the HRS Triple play. But the bottom of the lineup, because you saw how big of an impact it had yesterday. Now, obviously, Trey Turner had 4 RBIs, but the bottom of the lineup, Buddy Kennedy, Johan Ross, and Cal Stevenson all went 3 for 7 with 3 RBIs. I don't think you can really consider Kennedy as the bottom of the lineup yesterday. He did that pinch hit for Schwarber, who was the leadoff guy, but still, if Buddy Kennedy was in the lineup, he would not be batting first. He would not be batting in the top end of the lineup. But 3 RBIs, that's what got the Phillies over the hump. Buddy Kennedy and Cal Stevenson both put the Phillies over the hump. They got those extra RBIs, the go-ahead RBIs, before the Trey Turner second home run. So I definitely think this is going to be a critical game for the bottom of the lineup. And real quick before we get to the HRS Triple play, I do think you need to win this game because I believe the Mets won today. They were getting no hit through 8 innings, and then Francisco Lindor hits a leadoff home run, and then it was bases loaded. They won 6-2. So it was 1-0 in the top of the 9th with a no-hitter going, and the Mets ended up winning 6-2. So Mets, if the Phillies lose, they will be 7 games back. And guess what? The Phillies have 7 games against the Mets coming up in their next 10. And in the middle of that, 3 against the Brewers. So I think you need to win this game. You need to stay. You're not going to lose all 7 to the Mets. But, God forbid, if they do, you're at least getting a game difference if you are 8 games ahead now. It's not going to happen, but you want as much space as you can get, especially from a team who is red hot. Got to update this graphic here. Mets have won 11 of their last, 13 games now? 12 games? That's all talk. We're talking ahead because we always track the playoffs here. But getting back to the Phillies, let's see what we got cooking today for the HRS Triple play. As always, HRS Triple Play is powered by Win Daily. New promo. Use that code HEAT. You get the scratch and save deal. It's like a lottery ticket. The scratch off lottery tickets. When you scratch it off, you could get $5. You could get $100. You could get $100 million. So you never know what you're going to get. So go to Win Daily. Use that code HEAT for the scratch and save. So here's what we got tonight. Zach Wheeler, over 7.5 strikeouts at -110. He's had 7 in each of his last 2 starts, but you look at his career stats against the Rays, he has struck out at least 8 in each game. So I do think he's going to get at least 9 today. That's a huge thing saying there, but I do think Zach Wheeler is going to have a really good game. I do think it is going to be a pitcher's duel, so I'm all in on the strikeouts tonight. Bryce Harper to get 2+ total bases at +100. has not faced Shane Baz. I believe the only person in that Phillies lineup to face him was Zach Wheeler. Yeah, or not Zach Wheeler, was Kyle Schwarber, but he was cut. So he's no longer in the lineup. So I think Bryce Harper, so close from a home run yesterday. So close. Did not get to see whether or not that was actually a home run or not. But from the people watching at home said it was a good call that it wasn't a home run. Did have money on a Harper home run. So unfortunate there, but think he will have another really good game tonight. Had a 4-hit performance last night. His average is back at 291, so he's getting back there. It's just the power numbers. If he had the power numbers, I think he would be at least in contention with Shohei Ohtani and Marcell Ozuna for the National League MVP. But at this point, the lack of homer, I think he hasn't hit a home run in over a month. So that really derailed his MVP case because you need those numbers to back it up. I think maybe even Francisco Lindor has a better case than Harper at this point. Got to compare the numbers. It's pretty close. But I do like the Harper 2+ total bases at +100. And then Aramis Garcia, -115 to get a hit. I couldn't find the odds for him to get an RBI. So maybe we'll do that too because Cal Stevenson's first game on here for the HRS Triple Play. I said that he was going to get an RBI. I was like, it's his first game. I think he'll get at least like an RBI single or something. What happened? He got an RBI single. So I do like Garcia to get one hit. Was over 3 in his first start, but I do like him tonight. Let me see what his RBI numbers are. 1+ at +285. So if you want another bonus bet, +285, Ramos Garcia, RBI. And then I mentioned the under. What's the line for today's game? It is 7.5. I would honestly, because my score prediction was 4-2 Phillies. So I am kind of liking the under for tonight's game. So under 7.5 at -20 at -122 on DraftKings. I do like that. So we got Zach Wheeler over 7.5 strikeouts at -110. Bryce Harper 2+ total bases at +100. Aramis Garcia 1+ hit at -115. And then the bonus bet. Bryson Stott to get a home run. Mentioned that he's the most important factor of the game tonight, filling in at the leadoff position for Kyle Schwarber. Bryson Stott to get a home run. I really like this. You look back at Shane Baz. He's given up 4 home runs in his last 4 starts, and it's usually to lefties. So I can see maybe Bryson Stott gets a leadoff home run, gets the crowd riled up, channeling his inner Schwarber. So I do think he will hit one at some point. +700, really good numbers. So again, Wheeler over 7.5 strikeouts, Harper to get 2+ total bases, and Garcia to get 1+ hit, with Stott hitting a home run at +700. And I do really like the under at 7.5 at -122. So get those in now. Go to Win Daily. Use that code HEAT for your scratch and save. So we talk about first half is the Phillies game. Now we get to talk about the other teams in baseball that are competing with the Phillies. Phillies do currently have the best record in the majors. So obviously they have it in the National League too. Right behind them is the Dodgers. They are on a 2-game losing streak, have lost 2 in a row to the Cubs. They're on the verge of being swept. They're only a game back from the Phillies. But again, Phillies do have the tiebreaker against them. Let's see. Who do the Dodgers have coming up? Bobby Miller's on the mound for them tonight. Bobby Miller has a 7.79 ERA. So with a red-hot Cubs team, Dodgers could very easily be swept tonight. After the Cubs series, they have 4 at Atlanta. So that is a huge series for both teams. Not even just both teams, for the Phillies and the Mets too, because the Mets are neck and neck with the Braves. Talk about the Mets a lot, but they have been so hot. And then Dodgers, 3 at the Marlins, 3 against the Rockies, and then 3 against the Padres. And then they finish off in Colorado. So they do have, I wouldn't call it an easy schedule, but they do have some tough matchups. They got the Padres, who have been pretty great in the second half. They have Fernando Tatis back, but they do play the Rockies twice and the Marlins. But they got that 4-game series against the Braves. That is going to be a tight series that we will be monitoring very closely here on HRS. And then the Brewers are the 3 seed. Haven't been too hot lately. They've been 5-5 in their last 10. They are 3.5 back from the Phillies for the 1 seed. I don't see them getting a bye. If the Dodgers get swept by the Braves, this could be a thing, but I don't think the Brewers are going to get a bye. I don't know. It's just a feeling. The Brewers are just one of those teams that feels like a 3 seed. They're not the greatest team. Like their offense isn't that great, but their pitching is really, really good. So Phillies do have 3 games coming up against them next week after the Mets series. So Brewers 5-5 in their last 10 tonight. They are squaring up in San Francisco, going up against Blake Snell, Mr. Second Half. So we will monitor all this during post game, and then get to the Braves. They are currently tied with the Mets. Actually, this is a lie because the Mets have just won today. So right now, the Braves are a half of a game out of the wild card spot. So let's update that. 0.5 games, 0.5 game back of third wild card spot. So let's talk. Actually, let's change this up a little bit because the Blue Jays were throwing a no-hitter. So I thought we would be talking about that. So we'll talk about the Mets first because lead into the not just Philly moments of the night. There we go. Bada bing, bada boom. So right now, the number 7 seed, the third wild card spot, belongs to the New York Mets. They sit alone as of right now. They have won 11 of their last 12 games. Francisco Lindor has been red hot in the second half of the season, really starting to push for those MVP votes. He's not going to win it. He will get some votes maybe, but it's Shohei Ohtani. I would even take Marcell Ozuna over him. But could you make the argument that Lindor deserves second over Ozuna with how the teams have been performing? I don't think so because baseball has never really factored team record into awards. So Mets, 11-12, red hot. And they are currently 7.5 games back from the Phillies. Got a weekend series at the bank, and then next weekend they are at Citi Field for 4 games. So Mets, man, I can't stress enough. I thought they were out of it. Honestly, I thought they were out of it in the beginning of the month, or midway, closer to the end of August. But they have really turned it up a notch, and they are looking to be a somewhat dangerous team to play coming up in the regular season and the postseason. And the Braves, the number 8 seed, the team with the best record in baseball last year, the last 2 years, looked like they were going to be a dynasty, won the World Series in 2021, but 2022 and 2023 losing to the Phillies in their first round matchups. So they are 5-5 in their last 10. I think they do have the tiebreaker over the Mets right now because you look at the standings. Before the Mets won today, the Braves were ahead. They were tied, but the Braves were ahead. So I would assume that the Braves have the tiebreaker. But, man, it's a close race with them. That'll be a really interesting couple of weeks coming up in baseball. And then got the teams in the wild card. Cubs are 4.5 games back. I'm sorry, 4 games back. They could definitely be a threat. They're about to sweep the Dodgers if they win tonight. Cardinals 6.5. Don't think they are going to make it. They have been really cold lately. Did not think they were going to have a great season. They really haven't. Giants 8 games back. Got off to too much of a slow start. They're just a mediocre team. They're nothing more than a mediocre team. Missed out on Aaron Judge. Missed out on Carlos Correa. So their big free agent signing was Blake Snell. Has been doing better in the second half of the regular season, but nothing to put them over the hump. Then the Reds, another team that will probably be in wild card contention next season. They were expected to take a step forward this year. I don't know if I would really say they did, but Reds pretty much out of it for this season. Same with the Giants. Cardinals not completely out of it, but anything's possible. And then the Cubs are the only team I could see overtaking the Mets or the Braves, although I do think it is going to be one of those teams because obviously you have the Padres and the Diamondbacks. Don't think they're going to blow their lead in that respective. I think they're up 3.5 games on the Mets and the Braves, so definitely not impossible, but with the schedule coming up, I do not see either of those NL West teams dropping out. I do think just one of the NL East teams will make it, not just Philly. Moments of the night. Speaking of the Braves, huge hit to the rotation. Reynaldo Lopez is going back to the 15-day IL. Had a little stint there in August, but he has shoulder tightness. He is going back on the injured list. Huge blow for the Braves, who's arguably been their second best pitcher this season. Filling in that Spencer Strider role. Chris Sale's having a Cy Young season, is most likely going to be the National League Cy Young. Reynaldo Lopez was in that conversation for most of the year, but injuries have really derailed him. I believe he was close to a 2 ERA for Atlanta. One of their best free agent acquisition of the past offseason. So he was supposed to be a reliever, and he came in a dominant starting pitcher, hard hitting, hard throwing, 8-5, a 2.03 ERA, 137 strikeouts in 128 and 2/3. So huge blow to the Braves rotation, who are about to go into a 4-game series against the LA Dodgers. And they are not going to have one of their aces. But speaking of aces and injured list, two are coming back for the Rangers. Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer are both scheduled to pitch for the Texas Rangers this weekend. Rangers not going to make the playoffs this season. They have really struggled. A massive World Series hangover. They pretty much cakewalked their way through the American League to the World Series. Had that close game against the Diamondbacks in Game 1, and then pretty much ran away with the World Series this year. They are currently 70-75, 7 games out of the American League wildcard spot. Not going to happen. So they are getting two of their aces back. So we will see if this is more of a get them ready for next year move, because the Rangers, really disappointing year. I mean, you win the World Series and the very next year you don't even make the playoffs. That is saying something, but that's baseball. Baseball is all about who gets hot at the right time. And we go on the football. The NFC and AFC Defensive Players of the Week were announced. Joe Mixon, Texas. Oh my goodness. Houston Texans running back got the honors. He 30 carries, 159 rushing yards, 19 receiving yards, and a rushing touchdown. You look at the Bengals, who let him walk because they thought he was a little bit older, and he balls out in his first game. Common denominator for the Offensive Player of the Week. Teams letting the running backs walk. Bengals rush game looked pretty terrible. Zach Moss and Chase Brown did not look that great against the New England Patriots, but the Patriots have a solid defense, so we'll see more in the upcoming weeks. But Joe Mixon, AFC Offensive Player of the Week, Defensive Player of the Week for the AFC. Gregory Rousseau, 3 sacks against the Cardinals, forced fumble, 6 tackles. He's looking like he's going to have a breakout season there. And then Chris Boswell. This was the week of the kickers in the NFL. There's so many field goals. Boswell, 18 points, 6 for 6 in field goals, and then he was 2 for 2 in PATs. So really good week for Chris Boswell. I mean, the Steelers beat him, or the Steelers beat the Falcons without having to score an offensive touchdown, which is pretty crazy. Wait, 2-2. He hit 2. But wait, Steelers won by, I thought they got 5 field goals. I didn't think they got any PATs. I don't think they scored any touchdowns. Did they? No, it was all field goals. So why did they say he was 2 for 2 on point after attempts? I don't know why that said that, but yeah, Chris Boswell, a really great game for him, along with a lot of other kickers. Speaking of kickers, NFC Special Teams Player of the Week, Jake Moody of the Niners, 20 points he accumulated for, 6 for 6 on field goals, 2 of 2 on the PAT. So a huge reason as to why they beat the Jets. He hit 2 50-plus yard field goals. Moody looking to solidify himself as one of the better kickers in the NFL, had an 84% field goal percentage last year. So Moody is off to a hot start so far. Defensive Player of the Week for the NFC, Bears cornerback Tyreek Stevenson, 4 tackles, 2 pass deflections, and he had that 43-yard pick 6. Will Levis looked terrible. He had a Carson Wentz-esque play, was falling to the ground. He just and goes right to the Bears defender, pick 6. Bears didn't score an offensive touchdown, and they won. They were my survivor pick this week, so I got lucky on that. So I don't get to pick the Bears for the rest of the season. I'm honestly fine with that. Wasn't super high on the Titans, so I figured Caleb Williams at home. Bears defense is really good. I did think they were going to win, and lo and behold, they did. So not too bad. Also went 3-0 in fantasy football, but I'll talk about that after all. After all this news, Saquon Barkley. Was there any doubt? Got my list of favorite Eagles up there: Zach Ertz, Jason Kelsey, Nick Foles. Saquon Barkley has a chance to make that list. By the time he's done finishing his Eagles playing career, his stats for his first game, 109 rushing yards, 23 receiving yards, 2 rushing touchdowns, and a receiving touchdown in prime time on a slippery field. Saquon Barkley showing the Giants that they should have paid him over Daniel Jones. Giants gave Daniel Jones, $100 million, and he looks awful. That whole team looks abysmal, and Saquon finally has a supporting cast. You have to worry about A.J. Brown. You have to worry about Devontae Smith. They both had great games against the Packers. Dallas Goedert had a couple of really good catches. You got to worry about Jahan Dotson. He's still lurking in that wide receiver 3 spot. And then you got to deal with Saquon Barkley. So Saquon Barkley takes the load off of the other guys, completely took over that game. The biggest reason as to why the Birds prevailed over the Packers. So congrats to all you Week 1 NFC and AFC Players of the Week. Thursday Night Football this week is Dolphins-Bills. Raheem Mostert will not be playing in that game. The Dolphins running backs, Devon Achane, the other running back for the Dolphins, is questionable. He's likely going to be a game-time decision. So what's his name? Jalen Wilson? Whatever the Dolphins' third-string running back is, rookie guy they drafted. Pick him up in your fantasy leagues. Bet on him especially if Devon Achane is not playing, because James Conner just had a monster game against that Bills defense, and it's going to be in Miami. So Dolphins running backs, no matter if it's Achane or not, I think Dolphins run game is going to be very good. And then a very successful Week 1 for football in general. 21 million viewers per game. I know it was one of the most viewed Monday Night Football games ever. The Thursday Night Football game, I think, was the most viewed. So really great viewership numbers for the NFL this weekend. And yeah, I did go 3-0 in fantasy. Kind of got lucky, but I had Jameson Williams on my bench for Chuba Hubbard, who the Panthers, man, they just look abysmal. Dave Canales, not a great start to his new season, new head coach for the Panthers. Bryce Young looked abysmal, but man, that Panthers team looking to be for the 3rd straight season. If they get it this year, they would finish with the number 1 overall pick. Obviously, they did not get it last year because they traded their pick last year to the Bears for Bryce Young. Bears ended up with Caleb Williams. So not the greatest start for the Panthers. 3-0. Not high scoring game for fantasy. That's why I said you got to put your stock in quarterbacks who get rushing yards, because this was one of the lowest passing weeks in the last 20 seasons. I do think that is a lot to do with these players not playing in the preseason. So I do think it'll be better as time goes on, but definitely for fantasy, you have to invest your stock in a guy who can not only throw, but can run the ball. And today it is September 11th, the anniversary of the tragic terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center in New York. So it's a very interesting topic to learn about. I visited the Memorial Museum in New York. It's crazy because that was before I was born, so I don't really know what happened that day. You have to be there to experience that. So I like asking my family that was alive during that time, just asking them, like, what were you doing when you heard? Like, what was that day like? So just the Barstool puts out a great video every year. Was the man with the green bandana, a phenomenal story about a man who saved tons of lives that day. So rest in peace to all the fallen members of September 11th. May they always rest in peace. Just never forget 9/11. Post-game live 5 to 10 minutes after the final out. As always, depends on if it's going to be a close game or not, because then I have all my notes ready. But nonetheless, I will be here live on Heat Ratio Sports. Make sure you're liking, make sure you're commenting, subscribing, and pressing that notification bell. You get notified as soon as we go live. So have a good night, everyone. See you at the post-game show. Go Phillies. And as always, Stay fresh, my friends.